What's going on, people? Welcome back to another Get a Bucket podcast with me, your host, Chris LeBron. As always, joined by my guy, Kev. Kev, what's going on, brother?
It's a great day, right? A lot going on. We got this solar eclipse stuff. It's the last day of college basketball. It's kind of bittersweet. I'm always bittersweet about these things because, like, you want to enjoy the game, but then you realize we're not going to have any more games until November. So that's a long stretch. But, hey, we got spring and summertime to get outside and do some things like that, stay active. But I'm doing great, man. It's a new week. Can't complain whatsoever. Ready to get it talking. We got a lot of crazy news, of course, as most of y'all know, but I'm good, man. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. Dealt with the solar eclipse and all that craziness and all that. But like I said, last day for college basketball. The women's game was yesterday. Shout out to South Carolina, Dawn Staley, undefeated season. That is remarkable. What she's doing over there is just absolutely historic and all that. And then shout out to Caitlin Clark in Iowa for she did her thing and all that. Just really putting a stamp on her greatness of her career and all that, and really showing out. And she'll be going heading to Indiana next year, and we'll see how she transitions to the league and all that. But before we get into all that, Kev, Coach Cal said, "I'm out, Lexington." He's heading deuces. I'm tired of y'all hitting me up and all this. Coach Cal is going to coach the Arkansas Razorback. He's heading to Fayetteville and coaching the Razorbacks and all that. And then move where, it could kind of – I told you before this, I heard somebody who I knew was from the area on Facebook say they were hearing things, but nothing, crazy. But he's like, he heard that they may be talking. But we hear this a lot from Coach Cal. I hear we talking to somebody. Mm-hmm. And then it happened. So Coach Cal is headed to Arkansas. And he had it. Everybody was, talking about the buyout. It was like $32 million, if they were going to fire him and all that. But with him going to Arkansas, there is no buyout. So Kentucky doesn't have to worry about that, with him and all that. So, and now we've seen, Aaron Bradshaw's in the portal, and there's going to be probably more guys heading to the portal or decommitting. Kentucky got a few big-time recruits. Boogie Flan from out here in New York. We'll see if he follows him. But when you heard the news, what was your initial thoughts? Because it kind of just happened quick. You heard their negotiations, boom. He's there. So what was your initial thoughts when you heard Coach Cal heading to Arkansas?
I was super surprised, right? Because as I told you before we jumped on, it was a lot of speculation and rumors that were popping around before the actual news broke. And I kind of seen it just because, if we're being honest, Cal, with the last few years they've had, right, since COVID, you had 2019. That was the last time they made it to a Sweet 16 with Tyler Hero, right? Mm-hmm. Since then, 2020, it wasn't a tournament. 2021, they were just bad. Rest in peace, Terrence Clark. It was just a tumultuous year. 2022, they lost to St. Peter's, a 15 seed. Then the last year, they lost to Kansas State, who was a 3 seed, Marquise Noel, Keontae Johnson, right? But this was in the second round. And then, of course, we all know this year, first round, they lose to a 15-seeded or 14-seeded Oakland Golden Grizzly squad that most people didn't even know what state Oakland was in, right?
They thought Oakland was in California.
Exactly. So when you're getting bounced out the tournament early in the first round and you're at Kentucky, it's not a good mix, bro. And he's been there for 15 years. That's a long time. Most coaches don't last that long, right? So on top of, he already has a rocky relationship with Kentucky's athletic director, Mitch Barnhart. And they were clashing for a long, long time. So I thought that if you go back and watch the end of that game, as Cal was leaving the floor, it was a frame of him and his wife and his son Brad behind him in the stands, and all of them looked like they had just seen a ghost. And when I seen that, I was like, man, this might be Cal's last game. But nobody thought it was going to get to this where Cal was going to leave, right? They thought Cal was going to get fired and then bounce back and end up somewhere else. But for him to leave and take a job inside the SEC in Arkansas, is crazy. And then you got to look at the entire domino effect, right? So it starts with SMU fires Rob Lanier, right? Then they poach Andy Enfield from USC. Then Muss leaves Arkansas and takes USC. And then Cal leaves Kentucky and takes Arkansas. And so now you're going to have another domino effect on top of that where Kentucky's going to open up and then possibly they might, poach another college coach. So it's a lot going on there. This is groundbreaking news for college basketball, but for Kentucky fans, I know the last few years have been rough, but you should still be grateful for what Cal did. Cal, to me, I always say, yeah, he only had one national championship, even though it's only 7 active coaches that have one right now. But what he's done off the court when it comes to this one and done thing, he's been very vocal about pushing summertime games for teams to compete in the summer instead of just waiting until November, which I think is a genius idea, right? He's the ultimate pioneer and trailblazer for college basketball. Like, to me, him and Sonny Vaccaro have done things that are just legendary, right? On and off the court, but more so off the court. So I think when we look at Cal, when it's all said and done, we're going to look at his impact is second to none. And I think going to Arkansas must kind of help revitalize it. Mike Anderson did a good job of bringing them back from the dead, and then Must kind of carried that. And I think Cal's going to take it to an entirely different level. And let's be honest, too, for Arkansas fans, Must took them to 2 Elite Eights and 1 Sweet 16 in 5 years. Like, that is tough, right? It's not too many coaches doing that. Most programs would die to have that success in March. But this is a great move. I love it for Cal. I think he was feeling the hate and the anger from Big Blue Nation just dwelling on him. And at 65 years old, I don't blame him, bro, because at Arkansas, you're going to a place where the expectations are lower, right? You get a clean slate. You're still in the SEC, and you're going to be more motivated than ever because your last fan base kind of just quit on you. So, and some had the right too. I'm not going to make it seem like Kentucky fans are just completely in the wrong, but to me, I think this is I think it's a great thing for all parties involved, for Kentucky, for Arkansas, and for Coach Cal and just his living space. I think this is a great move as a whole.
Yeah, it was just crazy, like, because we thought maybe he can get fired possibly and all that, and that's always, no, it's gonna be too much money and all. So we're like, all right, maybe one more year at least, right? We thought one more year at least, and like you said, the dominoes just kind of happened. Must leaves to USC, and it was like, And then if you're Arkansas, why not go for it? When's the last time Arkansas won a chip?
Way back in the day.
Back in the day, right? I think they
do too.
Yeah. Nolan. I think that they so it got to be their 90s and all that. But for them, we've said this is one of the best jobs in the SEC. They have the resources and all that, and it's a job. I mean, look what Muss did. I mean, they went to back-to-back Elite Eights. They had he had Sweet 16 in there, so, and that's with him just going through the portal and all that. So now you add Cal to that, and knowing what he can do with recruiting, we know he's a big dog in recruiting and all that, and the pressure won't be as high. Kentucky that's like coaching the Cowboys, that's like coaching the Lakers, the manager of the Yankees, like that. It's on that level, coaching that Duke, like that's on that level. Like there's pressure and all that, and little Arkansas, you might feel appreciated a little bit more. And I think, like I said, contentious relationship with the AD doesn't help. And it's like, all right, I think I did all I can here, and you go to Arkansas, you change it up and see what happens. But I think Carter Knox decommitted from Kentucky, so you wonder if he goes, like I said. So there's going to be, he may be able to get some of his guys to come there, and all that. But a real monster move for Arkansas and all that. But now Kentucky is left with no coach. So now they're possibly losing recruits and all that. So obviously they need to go hurry up and get themselves a coach. Now that's the next thing. Who's lined up to be the coach of this team? Do they go the mid-major route or do they go home run, which I think that's the way they go and all that. So who do you think are some candidates that you think Kentucky will go after?
It's going to be a few mentioned, right? To me, I think the best three, the top three, if you're Mitch Barnhart, should be Scott Drew, obviously at Baylor, Billy Donovan, who I think is probably going to end up getting it. Obviously, dealing with the Bulls, they haven't had much success. It's not even his fault, to be honest. The front office is just terrible,
The
right?
Lonzo Ball thing,
Set him back a lot.
Yeah.
So you got that, and then I think Bruce Pearl, right? And I know some Kentucky fans are going to be mad hearing that because they've been competing against him. They've been saying he's trash and all these things. But I honestly think if you can bring up Auburn basketball, you can have success at Kentucky, right? So to me, I think those three are going to be the main, or I think those would be my three. But you're going to hear Nate Oates. You're going to hear probably a couple other guys. But I think the biggest issue with a few of those guys is their buyouts are so high. Kentucky might be willing to pay. Look, they were willing to pay Cal's buyout when they lost to Oakland. And like you said, it was $32 million. So if they can scramble $32 million, they can scramble around 17, 18 million, which obviously is not chump change. But to me, I think, again, those three between Drew, Donovan, and Pearl are the best options to go, honestly. If you're trying to get back to your winning ways in March in the NCAA tournament, those are the ways to go, in my opinion. I know Bruce Pearl just got bounced out round one versus Yale, but his guard play wasn't going to get the job done. That wasn't it this year. But outside of that, even with Scott Drew, the concern with me would be, if we're being honest, I know he won that chip in 2021, but Baylor's defense has taken a humongous step back since Jerome Tang departed for Kansas State, if we're just being real. That defense has not hit the same whatsoever. So really, it's going to be a gamble, and it's going to be, honestly, probably the most important hire of Mitch Barnhart's tenure in Lexington as athletic director. You cannot mess this up because, again, the fans, they don't really care. They didn't care about the one and dones anymore. They didn't care about the superstar players in the NBA. They didn't care about getting all the top recruits. They just want to win in March. It might not have to be a national championship. It's just about at least getting to the Final Four, you know what I'm saying, once every few years. And so, obviously, that's easier said than done, but to me, I think Billy Donovan is probably the way to go. And that's another thing. Is like, does Billy Donovan want to come back to the college ranks when the college landscape is completely different than when he left Florida, right? So I don't know. It's going to be a very interesting carousel for Kentucky and the Wildcat fan base.
You say those names, and those are names I heard when Goodman he dropped those same names last night on the YouTube show on the Field of 68 when I saw that. I saw those names. He mentioned Billy Donovan and all that. And obviously, when's the last time he coached college basketball? It's maybe it's been a little bit, right? It's been a little because he took the OKC job and all that. When they still had Westbrook and Durant, right? When he took over, so 2016, 2015, so damn near 10 years and all that. But obviously his coaching pedigree is, we know he has back-to-back national championships, with Florida, but that was a long time ago. I was in high school when that happened, so is that where you go? If he gets let go by Chicago, do they go that right? And he's been adamant that he loves the NBA game, wants to coach the NBA, but if he gets let go, does he get another job and all that? I could see that. The Scott Drew thing is the one, because his buyout I think is like $4 or $5 mil, so it's doable. That's chump change for Kentucky. I mean, like you said, if they were willing to pay $32 million to get rid of Cal, $4 million is like they got that in their pocket. They could just, but does he fit? That's the thing. And like Baylor, let's be real, there's not a lot of pressure. There's no pressure. You're allowed to do your thing and build, and where in Kentucky, they wasn't happy what Coach Cal was doing, and he's getting number one classes and all that. And yeah, they weren't winning and all that, but overall, he got to 3, 4 Final Fours, won a Natty. Yeah, it was 13 years ago, but he still won a Natty. We know how hard it is to win a national championship. Is not easy at all. So does he go? Bruce Pearl. Will he be able to, will they be able to, do they like that fieriness and all that? Would they like that and all that? And he's done a great job at Auburn, but are they going to be satisfied? Well, yeah, he got bounced out early and all that. So this is an important hire for them. They gotta, because obviously they gotta do it quick because before they start losing potential recruits and all that and transfers and all that. But you're the AD. Who are you going after? Who's your guy?
They say the favorite's been Scott Drew. So I'm like, I mean, I guess to me, I'm looking at it from both sides. If I'm Scott Drew, I'm not leaving Baylor, if I'm just being honest. And everybody out there is going to be like, why wouldn't you? Obviously, Kentucky's clearly a better job. Yes. But what you touched on is way more pressure. It's going to be way higher expectations. And you've been at Baylor. Scott Drew's been at Baylor for, I think, over 20 years now. Why leave a situation where you've literally built up that program? You've made them respectable. They're going to probably consider building you a statue down there, right? You've done everything that you possibly can. Do you really want to relocate your family? Are you trying to start over? Like, it's a lot that goes into it. It's not just, oh, Kentucky's a better job, they're going to pay me more, whatever the case may be. Yes, obviously that's going to play a part in anybody that inquires about the job. But I look at, for instance, I'll leave this on wax right now. This is going to sound crazy to say, but if I'm Shaheen Holloway, I'm never leaving Seton Hall. If I'm Shaka Smart, I'm never leaving Marquette. Why? Because you're going to be loved and adored there for the rest of your life, right? And obviously, again, Shaheen went to Seton Hall, so he already knows how it goes. But the more he wins, the more he's just going to set himself up to be looked at as like one of one legendary. He already is legendary for them, right? But he's only going to continue to stamp his legacy out there as a coach, right? And same thing for Shaka Smart. Shaka didn't work at Texas. He went from VCU to Texas. That's a major jump, major expectations. He's not from the South, right? He goes to Marquette. He's from the state of Wisconsin. It's a perfect fit, right? So that's my thing. It's like sometimes these coaches jump for these opportunities, and it's just not it, right? And I get it. The money is there. You want to challenge yourself to a certain extent. Even with Danny Hurley, we'll talk about it. If Danny Hurley cuts down the Nets tonight, even if he doesn't.
That's where I was going next.
Okay, my bad. Even if he doesn't, though, I'm not leaving UConn. I'm sorry, bro.
I'm not leaving UConn. Let's get into that because that's the other big name is Danny Hurley.
Yeah.
And obviously I'm sure he's not really thinking about that as he has a big game in a few hours, trying to win back-to-back national championships and all that. But Danny Hurley, that's another name that's been circling around. And I'm sure if you're Kentucky, that's probably your number one target. I know Scott Drew, but you just saw what you see when he's done building UConn back. That's probably their number one target, and they're gonna throw the house at him most likely. But I don't know if whatever happens today will factor in. I don't think it will. But for Danny Hurley, do you listen? I think you always listen. You always listen, no matter what. You'd be stupid to not listen. But do you actually think about leaving a great spot in UConn? Like you said, it's not Kentucky is Kentucky. The resources and all that, it probably trumps UConn and all that. But do you think about it if you're Danny Hurley? And if you're Kentucky, is that your, like, if we can get him, we're going after him, we're throwing him the bag? Because obviously money's not a concern. Money's not a concern with Kentucky. So if they want to give him, 7 years, $80 million, they'll give him that. But if you're Danny Hurley, regardless of the outcome of today, do you entertain Kentucky? And we talked about this before we got on. He's a Jersey kid, and East Coast. That's different from and he's kind of he coached at Wagner out here in Staten Island and all that, right? Rhode Island, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's kind of been in the East Coast, and obviously UConn, Lexington's different and all that. You go from there. I don't know if I could even stay a week in Lexington and handle that, let alone coach there and all that. So do you think he entertains it? He's gonna listen, and he'd be stupid to not to, because that's leverage too, and be like, "Yo, UConn, let's open up a little, give him a little more cash in my pocket." So that's smart on him business wise. But does he entertain? Does he actually sit down and be like, do I go? What do you?
It's Kentucky.
It's Kentucky.
You have to entertain it, right? And I think from his perspective, he's always been looked at as like little bro, right? Between Bobby Hurley being his big brother, and then obviously his pops is one of the most legendary coaches in all of basketball history, right?
Yeah.
So for him, this opportunity to just continue to build upon his legacy and take it even further and maybe be looked at as one of the greats of all time. And again, I think he could still do that if he stays at UConn, right? For any UConn fans that maybe listen to this, he could build a dynasty at UConn, right? He's about to win. There's a good chance tonight he goes back to back, which again hasn't been done since 2008 with Billy Donovan in Florida, right?
Yeah.
And if you do that in this day and age, especially with just think about all the pros he just lost last year between Jordan Hawkins, you lost Andre, you lost Sanogo, right? You lost Joey Talcaterra, right?
Sanogo, like
you lost dogs. And so to get back to this point already says a lot about you. And on top of the fact they're on I think it's like an 11-game win streak of winning by double digits in the tournament.
Digits, bro. Kev, I say this all the time. Every time we literally had conversations last year, like, hey, does especially after that little stretch they had, before the Big East turn, like, do they think about it? And even before that, when we first started the pod, we were like, yo, he got to figure this out, or else he might be out of a job. And even I saw Phil Sick. They even like, yeah, he was on the hot seat. Like he was on the hot seat. Like he needed to. And like they had that bad stretch last year where they lost like 5 and 6, 6 and 7, something like that. And then the switch flip. And they just have been on the tear, especially like they're dominant and good teams too. Like they're making good teams. Like that 30-0 run against Illinois, that's historic. Like everybody going, yo, remember when they was tied and then they just went on a 30-0 run and all that? Like he's gone on an historic run. It is great, and to have a chance to win back-to-back and against an all-time great player in Zach Edey, like they have that opportunity to do that, and then to potentially, run it back again, but like you said, it's Kentucky. It's Kentucky.
That's the thing. It's like, again, it's a different beast, right? It's a whole different atmosphere, a whole different place. It's technically the South, right? So you're leaving the Northeast where that's all you know for the most part, right? You're super familiar with, right? Like you said, Wagner out there in Staten Island and Rhode Island, which is right there up there in the Northeast of the Northeast. So to me, I don't really think he can go wrong. I think regardless, his legacy, again, this is all pending on what happens tonight. But even if it doesn't, he'll be back here, no doubt about it in my mind. But his legacy is already damn near stamped, right? But again, tonight is just like you win one chip, you're already in a different category because it's already tough to win one. But you win two, you're in a whole different stratosphere, right? You're with the Patinos, you're with the Roy Williams, you're with the Bill Selfs, you're with the Coach Woodens, you're up there. You're in a realm where it's only a few. And again, just winning one, you're already in a unparalleled level. But again, winning two is like, all right, man. That's why bringing in my Coach Izzo was dying trying to get that second one. You know what I'm saying? So it's like
different, right? It's different. It really is different.
They talk about you differently, right? And so, man, Danny Hurley gonna have a tough decision to make. He is, because again, do you leave what you've already built up, where you literally, I'm not gonna say you pull UConn out the gutter, but they went through some dark days, right? It was like 9 years of dark times. Even when they won it in 2014, that team wasn't looked at as the best team in the country. They were top tier, and they had some issues, but they weren't looked at as like the best team in the country. And they did it with Kevin Allen and Shabazz Napier. So to me, I don't really think he can go wrong. Me personally, I'd probably stay at UConn, but knowing him, he probably wants that challenge. And he probably really wants to test himself, because you look at a reason why a lot of people love Cal and Pitino is because they've had success at multiple schools, right? Pitino was at a few different places, right? Providence, Louisville, Kentucky. So that's why people love him. Cal, same thing. UMass, Kentucky, these places, now Arkansas. It's a different level of respect. But you also look at, Coach K, right? He did it all his time at Duke, right? It just depends on how you look at it. But I honestly don't think Danny Hurley can go wrong, because he clearly has the formula for success in today's landscape of college basketball.
My thing is, would he be allowed to recruit the way he is? Because obviously Kentucky, they still want to get the big time recruits and all that. And not that he hasn't got good recruits at UConn, but he was allowed to build
Yeah.
Obviously, we've seen these last two teams he's had. He's allowed to build. He's got upperclassmen and all that stay. Kentucky, obviously, the way they've been going is, all right, we're getting the top 5 recruits and all that, one and dones. Does he continue that philosophy if he goes? Is he going to be allowed to build at Kentucky? Because the fan base has a voice, a big voice.
Loud.
A loud voice, but maybe the loudest. Yeah, they are. They have the loudest voice. So will he be allowed to be able to build the team the way he's being able to build the team at UConn? Because that's, it's one thing to do at UConn. Yes, UConn is a great program, but you can kind of get away with doing it that way, not getting the one and dones and all that. Where in Kentucky, they've been so used to that. Yes, it hasn't worked the last few years, but they've had a lot of great teams with the one and dones and all that. Will he be allowed to build a team that way? And not have the pressure. And then how does he do it? He's fiery. Yeah, and wifey's fiery too. That's the thing. That's the most underrated aspect of this is how, because she's called out UConn fans, and UConn fans aren't as loud as Kentucky fans. Kentucky fans will go into DMs and all that and say some wild shit. That's the thing. Can he be able to handle that different type of pressure? And I think he can, because he's a great coach and all that. But this is Kentucky. You struggle. If he probably would have been fired already. If this was Kentucky, if he was a coach in Kentucky before they won, he would have got fired already. That's just how they work. So will he be allowed to? I think that's what he probably thinking about. Will I be able to, allowed to build the way I build at UConn? If I can do that, then you can, because the money is going to be the thing. Now UConn's going to probably look at this and be like, damn, we got to find it. I know they probably don't have the collective like Kentucky has. So the boosters and all, they got to figure that out, because especially if he wins a championship again, yeah, he gonna have to be like, yep, well, you see that team, you see that school over there? I'm saying, so
regardless, he's either about to use Kentucky as leverage, or he's about to tell Kentucky, y'all got to up the offer, because I'm about to be 2 for 2. So
exactly,
he wins regardless.
He's winning regardless. Like, yep, 100%. He's winning regardless, because he's gonna get a bump. He's definitely getting another bump in pay, because he deserves it and all that. And yeah, Kentucky's gonna be leverage. So whether he uses him as leverage, but I mean, like you said, I think he's number 1 on their wish list. I think if they had their wish list is, they're gonna go after him. I believe Scott Drew maybe is the backup plan, which is a good backup plan. If that doesn't work, that's a good backup plan. Bruce Pearl's in there, and Billy Donovan's the ultimate wild card in there. Because I think he still has some juice. Because I think he could still. Yeah, he hasn't coached college in a little bit and all that, but he still has some juice and all that. He does obviously NBA experience and all that, and he's coached good in the NBA. He's just had some unfortunate losing Kevin Durant. That's tough. And then the Bulls, I mean, when they had Lonzo, they were rolling, and then he gets hurt, and they have they haven't been great. But even this year, they're in the playing team when we thought they were going to be trash. So that's going to be interesting to see. They got it's going to be interesting in Lexington what happens and all that. It really is going to be interesting how they go about it, because then let's say then whoever they hire, now that team, if it's Baylor, now Baylor's open. And now what does Baylor do? Well, if it's UConn, what does UConn do? Because now it's like, oh man, so this is going to be interesting. I'm really but yeah, Coach Cal going to Arkansas. How do you like that fit though with him in Arkansas? How do you like that fit for him?
I love it, just because, again, if anybody knows SEC basketball in today's day and age, it's Coach Cal. Yeah. And I think the only real tweak that he has to make, genuinely, is that you can still bring in your talented freshmen, but you just don't have to bring a whole bunch of them, right? You just got to bring a few of them. Yeah, you could bring in Reed and Rob Dillingham, but you don't got to bring in Aaron Bradshaw and
DJ
Wagner, and all these other guys. Like you need a few, and then you got to still recruit some other guys too. And then most importantly, what you don't have in your recruiting class, you have to identify via the transfer portal and utilize that, right? you can't just get a Trey Mitchell. Now you probably need a couple other guys, right? Like you had Antonio Reeves this year, but you probably need 2 more transfers because you need guys that know how to win, that have played in different environments, that have played in a whole bunch of different types of college basketball games. That's the key, right? You look at today's game, it's only one freshman that's going to start, and Stephon Castle, and he's going to be a lottery pick. You know what I'm saying? It's just not – it's not the nature of the beast right now. You got to get older faster, and the portal gives you the ability to do that. And so for Cal, again, still bringing your dudes, the dudes that you believe are stars, like, for instance, this 2024 class, you can bring in Boogie Flan and Jaden Quaintis and Carter Knox, but you don't have to bring in the rest of those guys. And that's not me trying to discredit those guys. It's just like, you know, for a fact, those 3 names I just mentioned have the capability of being a star. And Jaden Quaintis, for him, he's going to have to be in college for 2 years because he's only 16. He's young for his grade. So to me, I mean, that's really all it is. And I think this is an A+ hire for Hunter Yurachek, the AD at Arkansas. I think it's only a matter of time. They're going to get him for at least 5 years. He's 65, like I mentioned earlier. So he's going to have time to really build this thing up. And the main thing, too, everybody's saying is that the collectives, the boosters, everybody is going to be all hands on deck on making sure that this thing works, because Arkansas basketball is a serious thing, and they got a lot of money on down there, and they're going to invest. And I think Cal made the perfect move, and he should be thankful that the domino effect occurred, like I stated earlier.
Yeah. It kind of everything just fell into place and all that. Like it just worked out. You know, I don't know if he saw that coming and all that, but once Muss left, it was like, you know, hey man, I think time is up, and he went to a good spot too. I think Arkansas is a top tier SEC job, and I think he'll do a good job. You know, like I said, don't fall in love with all the freshmen like he's always doing. Like I think he'll still be able to recruit the way he recruits as usual, but like, you know, sprinkle in a couple transfers and all that, and you'll figure it out, because he's got to get rid of that narrative about it. He's not a great X's and O's guy and all that. So I'm sure he hears the noise and all that. But he is a new coach at Arkansas, so it's going to be interesting to see how he fits there, how he adapts, who he brings in. Does he bring any of the Kentucky guys in transfer portal, you know, or recruits that, like I said, Carter Knox is decommitted from Kentucky. See what happens with Boogie, you know, and all that. So we'll see. And then obviously Kentucky, that's going to be interesting to see who they hire and all that. So a lot of big news with that. That was the breaking news from yesterday. But we have a big time game to talk about, the national championship between the Purdue Boilermakers and the UConn Huskies, the battle of, you know, 2 top-tier programs. Obviously, Purdue, we all know what happened last year and the story of coming back, you know, with vengeance and getting to the national championship after losing in the first round last year. And then we know with UConn, they, like I said, 11 straight tourney wins by double digits. You know, They have absolutely been rolling. You know, they have absolutely just been on the tear. You know, Bama gave him a little bit. They gave him a little fight, but, you know, cut short. But battle of the big men. We got Klingman versus Zach Edey and all that. Can Zach Edey get that elusive national championship and stamp himself as maybe one of the greatest college basketball players of all time? So many storylines and all that. But what's the biggest thing heading into this game that you're looking forward to?
I'm not going to give the basic answer of saying the big men, because I think that's too easy and kind of obvious just to see how they match up between, of course, Donovan Klingman and Zach Edey. I'm going to go the point guard matchup between Tristan Newton and Braden Smith. Yeah. Honestly, I think that's going to be the thing that settles this game, just because Tristan Newton hasn't played amazing like he did last year in this tournament, right? He's been good. He's been solid. He's been making the right plays, but he hasn't been like the star guy that he kind of showed in flashes last year. And even last year's team, they didn't need him to be a star, but they needed him to make timely and key plays. And this year he's done that to a certain extent, but he hasn't really had to, just because their offense, their flow, Cam Spencer, right, Donovan Klingman holding down the paint, like teams can't score on them like that. So to me, even in that NC State game for Purdue, Braden Smith wasn't all that great either, right? Like he had some bad turnovers, he had some missed shots, and so I'm I'm excited to see who wins out on that one. I'm gonna take Tristan Newton just because again he's been here before, and I think UConn's guards can fluster him, especially because I think UConn's probably gonna throw Stephon Castle on Braden Smith to kind of get him rattled and get him shook, and that's a 6'7" point guard guarding you, right? So that's something you've seen, but you haven't seen too often, right? So you're gonna have to adjust and adapt to that. On top of they have multiple guards that they can throw at you, right? Between Tristan Newton, between Hassan Diarra, between Cam Spencer. And the biggest thing is how they're going to attack Zach Edey. It hasn't worked for most people because this is the thing, right? When you hear most coaches talk about it, they always say the mid-range game is the toughest shot in all of college basketball. But on the other hand, which is true, on the other hand, it's the most accessible shot regardless of level in basketball from the NBA on down. So if you can get to that, which UConn has dudes, especially Cam Spencer, coming off screens, if Zach Edey's in drop covers, UConn has guards that can make him pay, right? And so he's going to have to be ready to go on that end, and the guards are going to have to do a great job of getting over screens and recovering to their man. So I'm very curious to see how that plays out. But it's the point guard matchup. I think point guard matchups, for me, I was a point guard. I think point guard matchups always identify how a game is going to play out. And so that style of clash between Newton and between Braden Smith is going to be major because the big battle to me, I think Klingon will hold his own. I think it's a chance he might get in foul trouble. Maybe, probably. I think, Zach Edey puts everybody in foul trouble, but I mean, UConn has the bodies. They do have Samson Johnson off the bench too. It's
That's
not.
Yeah, that helps too, having Samson.
So I'm like, my thing is, and I'll go back to my code. I hate to be biased, but this is just what it is. Izzo has given out the game plan to beat Purdue, and it's literally you can live with those 2-point dunks that Zach Edey's gonna get in them over the hook shots. You cannot let Purdue get hot from three. If they get hot from three, it's a wrap. You have no choice or no chance. Excuse me. That's why NC State paid because Edey had an okay game, but them threes by Lance Jones put them out of their misery. And so I think UConn matches up well in that regard, and I think that's gonna ultimately decide the game.
You hit it on the head, man. They can't allow those threes. Like I said, Lance Jones, they can't lawyer. They can't let that happen and all that. But if there's a team that can stop that can counter that, it's UConn.
Mm-hmm.
And all that. But like I said, it's going to be interesting to see how they, especially in pick and rolls and all that, are they going to try to attack just to get attack in foul trouble and all that? Do they that's going to be the interesting thing of how UConn does it. It's very it's a very intriguing matchups and all that. But can Purdue not so much to slow down Kling and all that, but can they, Spencer, Caravan, stop those guys from getting hot from deep? Because if they get hot from deep, it could be trouble for Purdue because they just don't have the athletes that can match up with them defensively.
Can they run with them?
Exactly. Can they run with? And it seems like UConn's been close, but it seems like, especially in second halves, it feels like UConn finds that stretch where they go on that 8-0 run, and then it turns into that, and they kind of did that versus Bama, and then they took over and all that. So it's like, and obviously they did it, before, in previous games. So like, can Purdue avoid that, getting that little slump, and then, Caravan hits a three, Spencer hits a three, and then it's like, oh, now we're in trouble now. And then you force it, and then it's like, all right, so that's going to be the interesting thing for me is can Purdue, avoid those runs that UConn goes on and stop, the damage from outside. Because if they can contain that, then they have a shot because they can match up, especially in the post, obviously with Edey and all that. But that's going to be interesting. And Edey can't get in foul trouble either. Like that's the thing is like, how do you? Because he's got to be physical with Klingon because it's a big dude. So you got to. So I want to see how Painter adjusts with that because you lose him and that can be in trouble because obviously UConn has the size to just take over and all that.
I agree, and I think the biggest key too for Purdue, you need Fletcher Lawyer, bro. Yeah. You need Fletcher Lawyer because you know what you're going to get from Edey more oftentimes than not, right? You know you're going to get a good game from Braden Smith, but it's been some games where Fletcher Lawyer has just been completely gone. And there's been some games where he's been a star. Like he killed Arizona, he killed Tennessee. They couldn't do nothing with him. And when he's playing at that level, I mean, Purdue looks like the best team in America, even better than UConn. But when he's not, things get a little shaky, right? Because even the thing with the NC State game that frustrated me too with the Wolfpack was like, it was a lot of possessions. It was a stretch there in the first and second half where it felt like Edey did not get nearly enough touches as much as he should have. And Purdue wasn't scoring because of that, and NC State couldn't make them pay. If that happens today, UConn is going to make you pay every single time. So that's another thing to watch out for too. But
yeah,
I think we should get a really good game. And like we said the last episode, it's rare that we get the two best teams in the country on this stage in this moment. And I'm very excited to see how it plays out in an hour and a half.
I think Coach Hurley is going to be looking at, and because NC State did do some good things. Now they couldn't shoot the ball and all that, and that was obviously their demise and all that. But they matched they were physical with Purdue, and like I said, Braden Smith, he didn't shoot the ball. Fetchel didn't shoot the ball well and all that. So, and they were just a better team, so that's why they took care of business. But they play the same way they play against NC State versus UConn. UConn is going to win this game by 20. So it's going to be a wrap and all that. Yeah. He says Castle's going to be guard, and whoever has the ball, I think her's going to be like, go get him. Like I said, it's a 6'6", 6'7" guard with 7-foot wingspan that can, he's just going to be roving whoever got the ball. And so now they got to put their big boy pants on and, be able to handle the rock and all that. And how do they handle that? So, they can't play the way they played against NC State and think they have a shot, because they will get destroyed. Because even though it might be close in the first half, like UConn sometimes is, but then the second half, it seems like Hurley makes the right adjustments, and then they take off. So I think that's going to be the blueprint, for UConn to be physical and all that. And if you stop their guards, you're like, Zach's going to be Zach. He may not be as dominant because obviously Klingon can match him, but they need their guards to step up, Purdue, or else if it's anything like NC State game, this deserves a wrap. It's a wrap. So, it is going to be interesting. But who wins the national championship, Kev? Who gets to sing one shining moment? Who gets their one shining moment?
The Connecticut Huskies, man. I think it's destiny, right? I mean, when you just look at their style of play, bro, is just, you can't do nothing but salute it. I mean, honestly, that offense is a dream for any hooper, right? Because it's nonstop motion, it's nonstop continuity. Everybody gets a touch. You're always moving. It always keeps defenses off balance. It's just so hard to guard. And that's the thing, too. They're going to attack Edey off the ball, too. They're going to put him in some flare screens, and they're going to make him get out that paint.
Yeah,
right? He's going to have to move his feet. Yeah, so give me the Huskies, man. I just think Danny Hurley and his staff, they got the sauce. And that's another thing, too, I got to say real quick. I don't know why schools out there aren't trying to poach Danny Hurley's staff, because they clearly know what they're doing, right?
Doing something, right?
That's beyond me, but man, if he has the same staff next year, I'll be shocked. But it's a good chance he does. But regardless, I'm rocking with UConn, man. That'll be what, 6 this century, which is crazy to think about. But give me the Huskies.
That'll be how many? 6 this century? Wow, man. They have had. It's crazy because you usually don't think UConn has like a blue blood and all, and that's been like the thing. Okay, they're a blue blood. We obviously Kentucky, Duke, Carolina, Kansas, UCLA. We think of those, but like what they've been able to do, especially since the new turn of the century, with different iterations of through coaches and all that, it's impressive, and this might be the most impressive out of all their runs.
Ladies and gentlemen, UConn is a blue blood. I'm not debating nobody with that, but UConn is easily a blue blood, bro.
We updated that. It's been impressive. I'm rocking with you. I'm rocking with the Huskies getting the W tonight. I think they win back-to-back national championship. Like I said, we haven't seen that since Billy Donovan and the Florida Gators did it back in the 08, 09, right? 07, 08. You know,
Yeah.
so be the first time since then, and then an impressive run and all that. But we'll see. We should have a good game. We should definitely have a good game. Battle of the bigs and all that. Two great coaches. Can Purdue, and then if Purdue wins, man, it's just another great story. Like they had it's the UVA story essentially. Like you lose to a 16, and you come back and vengeance and all that, and you take care of business. So two potential great storylines in place today. So we got, we're in unfortunately it's the last day of the college basketball season and all that. But but we had, yesterday, South Carolina wins the national championship in the women's side, undefeated season, tremendous year, and all that. What Dawn Staley's been able to do there is absolutely impressive. I want to shout them out. Absolutely, Caitlin Clark, tremendous run.
Mm-hmm.
She changed the game, put more eyeballs on I think it was the most watched college basketball, right? Something like that. 17 mil, most watched. Hey, man, I can say whatever I want about the women's and all. They don't do that. There were 17 million people that were tuned in for the national championship, which is the highest gross game, more than any NBA game this year, whatever. They broken records and they're doing special things. We talked about that on the last show, just the talent that has been, that we're going to see, that is in the college game and all that. The game is in a good spot and all that. And men's, I know people be talking about the men's game. Oh, and the trend, oh, this is ruining this is ruining that. Hey, man, the game's in a good spot too, man. Yeah, some things need to be tweaked and all that, of course, right? We gotta fix the transfer portal or the signing, all this. Those things we'll figure out. But the game's also in a good spot. We got stars. We got star-studded national championship game. The game's in a good spot. Just enjoy it. I'm excited. I know it's the end of the year, but we still got a lot of things in store and all that. But it's gonna be a great one tonight. Anything else on your mind, man? Before we sign off?
No, I just got to reiterate your point. Shout out to Don. Shout out to the Lady Gamecocks. Tessa Johnson had a major game, right? Camila Cardoso, 2-time champ, transferred over from Syracuse. Yeah, Raven Johnson was on her A game. And just that whole team was different, bro. They got a lot of players. Malaysia Fulwiley is a dog, right? So salute to them. And then, like you said, for Iowa too, what Caitlin Clark did for the game, regardless of how y'all feel, she has raised the bar to a whole new level that a lot of people didn't think it would get to. And it's not just her, right? It's the star power as a whole. Mm-hmm. But her style of play to the average basketball fan looks like Steph Curry. And that's why people want to watch her and people want to see her and people view in to see her, whether they love her or hate her. And nothing against her. She got Iowa to back-to-back national championships. I know they didn't win them, but the fact that she brought Iowa to that national level says a lot about her and the legacy that she's going to leave, and that 22 is going to forever hang up in Carver Hawkeye Arena. And just shout out to them, man. They had a hell of a run. Kate Martin, Gabby Marshall, too, alongside a few others. So, shout out to them. But to Don, I mean, it's already 2. She about to win a whole lot more national championships, too. Believe that.
Man, she got a juggernaut. What is her record the last 2 years? It was some crazy the last few years.
Yeah.
3 losses.
Yeah, 108 and 3, I think. Something crazy.
Man. Undefeated. I don't care what sport. Going undefeated.
It's insane.
That's crazy. Crazy to go undefeated. You have a slip up. Every team has a slip up, and to be like go perfect. I mean, they almost had a slip up in the SEC tournament, right? When against Tennessee,
yep.
They left her wide open. So, but hey, sometimes you got to get lucky too, and all that. And they've had a great run, and they put the women's game, where it deservedly, should be, and the game's in good hands. And South Carolina, they're another team like potentially UConn going for a 3-peat next year. So it's Caitlin Clark, what she was able to do these last few years and put the game, where you got people who, not casual, but people who didn't care about women's basketball, they were tuned in like, hey, I gotta watch this. She had that, and you saw Dawn Staley give her respect and all that. But the fact that all those people tuned in, it only puts the game in a better position. So I'm looking forward to the growth of the game going forward, man. It's college. Like I said before, I know people transfer portal, all that, but man, if you let go of all that nonsense that we really shouldn't be worried about, because not like we are we're not running those teams, so I don't know why people care so much about how it. But game's in a good spot. College basketball is in a good spot. We got a great game tonight. Great national championship yesterday with South Carolina winning. Great game today. Potentially back-to-back national championship. Potentially a great story in Purdue. Can they come back from after losing to a 16 seed? So a lot of great storylines coming up and all that. But Kev, another great get a bucket in the books, brother.
Yes, sir, man. Appreciate all y'all that tuned in. Enjoy this last game. Enjoy the summer. Enjoy the spring. We still gonna be here. It's gonna be a lot of transfer portal news too. So I'm excited to see how that plays itself out. But it's been a hell of a season, and appreciate everybody that's been rocking with us, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Almost 200 people tuned in. Appreciate everyone who's watching. Appreciate everyone who supported. Like I said, we'll talk. I'm sure we'll recap the national championship and all that this week. Talk some more transfer portal stuff because a lot of big names in the portal. We'll dive into more of that. We'll see. Who maybe Kentucky new coach and all that. I'm sure they'll be working quick on that. So if that happens, we'll talk about that on the next show. But appreciate everyone who tuned in again. Appreciate all the support. Chris, I'm Chris. That's Kev. Get a bucket. Be well. Be safe. Take care. Peace out, guys.